Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can begin our second part of today's ceremony, which will be a panel discussion devoted to the issue of Eastern Partnership. But before we proceed to the panel discussion with our honorable guest, I wanted to take some of your time and to find a moment for a reflection that is extremely important for our institution as we begin our 10th anniversary, as we celebrate this 10th anniversary. Often our students and other of our friends asked me, so why did this European Academy of Diplomacy come to being? And when they find out that I and my husband Zbigniew Pisarski were the founders a decade ago, most people are very surprised because we are still relatively young, which means that 10 years ago we were even younger, when you think about it. And I wanted to spend a few moments to tell you the story of the Academy, but also to tell you what we plan next, where we want to be in the 10 next years. So our story, as you see, yes, this is Zbyszek. I look the same, and he looks older. Sorry, kochanie. The story of EAD is really a personal story. It's a story of me and Zbyszek, who met as students at an institution that was called Parlament Studentów, the Parliament of Students. We were both student activists, very much involved in different initiatives in our student life. And we were blessed to be in a very important time in Polish history. We met in 1999 when Poland was aspiring to join the European Union, but we are already a free country, and we were already a NATO member. And we thought as students, as very young people, that it's part of our mission to support this Polish road to the European Union as the young generation, but also to support this road that Poland has chosen to come back to Europe. And we thought with Zbyszek that we're extremely privileged. We come from wonderful families who have supported us throughout all our life. We are both from Łódź. Although our parents never did anything related to diplomacy, my parents are doctors. My mom is here with my grandmother, by the way. And Zbyszek's parents are accountants. They understood that we want to do something else. And thus, that something else was finding leaders just like ours that believed in Poland and its place in international relations, in its specific important place in history, and to show it around the world, to show it to the world. Our first, in terms of institutional development, our first organization was the Polish Forum of Young Diplomats. To make it clear, all these institutions still exist. But these institutions have grown with us. As students, we had a student association, the Polish Forum of Young Diplomats. As we grew, in a few years, we understood that we need an institution that will be actually inspiring new leaders, which will provide the right training for the new leaders, which will allow a platform, a networking platform, for these leaders to meet, and thus the emergence of the European Academy of Diplomacy. And after that came the Kazimierz Puławski Foundation, which is a think tank which focuses on analytical studies, reports, discussions, so promoting the young and older minds in the field of foreign affairs. And after that, a new baby to our family, the Polish Institute of Economic Studies, focusing on Polish legislation because we believe that it is in the rule of law and the respect of that rule of law that real democracy is embedded in. And today, we have free networking platforms within these institutions. The Academy of Young Diplomats, which you have either graduated or will start, the Visegrad School of Political Studies, a school that we are conducting with the Council of Europe to promote a new generation of political leaders in Central Europe, of that Central Europe that started in 1989, the changes that have swept the communist regime out of this region, there are new elites needed, because the Central Europe is still not united. It's still not, as we see with the Ukrainian crisis, with the Crimea invasion, is not what we would want it to be. And finally, this year's new addition, the Warsaw Security Forum. With the changing international context, we see Warsaw as a place where matters of defense, security, not only of Poland, but the region and the transatlantic alliance need to be discussed, and the Warsaw Security Forum is just that platform. Going back to the European Academy of Diplomacy, as I said, the institution itself is growing with us. The first program, Academy of Young Diplomats, again, which you are participants, or which you are students of, has been our first program. And it has, throughout those 10 years, have brought over 1,000 graduates, usually young Poles, who want to make a difference in Polish foreign service, in Polish diplomacy, who see themselves as ambassadors of Poland, both working here in Poland and abroad. The second element of our development was executive education. So we went from students into people who are professionals, who need to enhance their skills, who need to have the knowledge updated to work in the international environment. We were very proud in 2007 when we were commissioned to train over 600 Polish civil servants from 12 ministries in the run-up to the Polish presidency. And since then, we have been training many executives, including diplomats who come to our academy to learn Polish language, diplomats accredited here in Poland, foreign diplomats, but also other skills. And the third pillar of our activities, an extremely important pillar, and in a way the future of the academy, is our international programs. We have launched them with the Polish-American Youth Leadership Exchange in 2009, along with the US Congress. We have been conducting for several years exchange between Polish and American youth, but then went into programs that are more topic-specific, like the European Diplomacy Workshop. We have a group of 30 people here with us who are currently on this workshop for a week in Warsaw, talking about the Eastern Partnership. Summer diplomatic schools, so skills, women in leadership, investing in empowering women throughout the globe to make a difference in their communities. And finally, the new security leader programs, so for professionals that are interested, young professionals interested in defense, security, and this is a program run as part of the Warsaw Security Forum. Going further, we have also the program development, so the three big pillars have been accompanied by our institutional development. In 2008, the Council of Ambassadors has been created, headed by Ambassador Jan Wojciech Piekarski. We also have several ambassadors from the Council here with us today. And in 2012, we have also created the International Honorary Council. Ambassador Borys Tajrasiuk sits on that council among many prominent international leaders who support us with their advice, with their knowledge, with their experience, and often are present at many of our events. And the last years, 2013, have brought a new development, the Visegrad School of Political Studies. We are a Council of Europe partner for many years, but it was last year that the Council of Europe has commissioned us to create its 19th school worldwide, which gathers leaders from Central Europe. And this program is opened by Secretary General of the Council of Europe, Mr. Jagland, who came to open the school here in Warsaw, and in the presence of then Minister of Foreign Affairs, Radosław Sikorski. So we have been very much privileged with the growth we have been experiencing, and with the many speakers that we had over those 10 years. But I think the most important asset that we have are the people who stay with us. We had wonderful teams. This is the first team, 2001. Yes, that's me in the middle, and that's Zbyszek. He had a lot of hair. I know you're going to hate me now after this. And we were really having fun, and I think this is a very important thing when you do something, that you do it with passion, but also with fun, basically. And then as we went on, there were many more of our team members, some of whom I see, for example, Andrzej sitting there, Jakub, and many others who are still in touch with us and have been working on behalf of the EAD to create the institution that we currently have. And our today's team, which has done an incredible job to prepare this year's inauguration, is, I think, what we could have only hoped 10 years ago to have. And I'm extremely grateful to all our team members for their hard work in creating this institution. But of course, for us, 10 years is just a baby. 10 years is just the beginning. We're very proud to be the first non-governmental diplomatic academy in Europe. We're very proud to have offered 400 scholarships throughout those 10 years. And we're very proud that 71% of all our participants are women. That's extremely important. I think the world will be a different place if there's more of you and, leading the world. We now need more women presidents. And of course, the nationalities. 50 countries currently. People from 15 countries have participated in our programs, and we have 10 international alumni clubs working in different countries. And we also invite you, if you're not from Poland, from another country, to join in that effort of our international alumni clubs. But again, this is just the beginning. We have other plans for our future, and these plans are vast. Next year, we have been asked to host the International Forum for Diplomatic Training. This is a huge event that gathers around 100 directors of diplomatic academies from all around the world, from Australia, Africa, Latin America, who will come here at the end of September to Warsaw to learn from us and us learn from them about diplomatic training, about the trends, about the importance, but we also, through that event, want to show them how Poland is contributing to the well-being of, globally, the world, but also through diplomatic training to the quality of diplomats who shaped very often foreign policy. Apart from the International Forum of Diplomatic Training, which is a short perspective, we have two large projects for the long term. One of it is the EAD Scholarship Endowment. And this is critical because many of you have to today pay for some of our programs, particularly the Academy of Young Diplomats. And we would like to give out much more scholarships, not 5, not 10, but 100 annually to this program, to be able to really choose the best people. But in order to do that, we will need the support of both the corporate and public institutions who will contribute to an endowment we're currently creating. And this endowment will make even more sense when the third of our main goals, strategic goals for the next 10 years will be realized. That is the EAD campus. And we are currently working very seriously on creating such first projects of a campus. It does not have to be a big campus, it's more of a building, but something that actually will be a meeting place of young leaders from all around the world that come to Poland, that come to Warsaw, and have that premises where all these plans that we have will be able to realize. So these are the three things, our plans that what we see for the next year. So when we meet in 10 years, I hope that we will meet at a European Academy of Diplomacy premises, a beautiful building that will be a place always welcoming and always open to all our alumni and all our friends. And again, I would like to thank you very, very much for contributing to this growth of over the 10 years. It's an incredible journey for us. I hope we have contributed to your life journey in some kind of way, a positive way. And please be in touch, continue to grow with us, because we still have quite a lot of years to grow. We are hungry, just like Poles are hungry, and we want more and we want better. So thank you very much. Thank you. Dziękuję, kochani. Now, one more thing we do is always invest in the alumni network. And because we're celebrating our 10 years, and because we have seen so many incredible students in our programs, we decided to introduce a new element to our activities, the Alumni of the Year Award. And instead, just like we always do, instead of choosing one alumni, we chose 4. I would like to ask Jason Warlich, the Executive Director of the European Academy of Diplomacy, who himself has contributed over the last 4 years an immense amount of time and work into the Academy, to present our 4 alumni, the Alumni Award recipient.
Thank you, Kasia. Good evening, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and most importantly, our students. Most of the students, and many of you who've worked with the Academy over the years, know that I spent my developmental years as a United States Marine. And there's a quote from Ronald Reagan who said that most people spend their entire lives wondering if they've made an impact on the world. Yet Marines know this intuitively. And I've always wondered, from these 5 years that I've spent doing my job in the Marine Corps, was there actually an impact in which I made? And when I left the Marine Corps, I did many different things, and I wandered, and I found myself in Łódź, in the hometown of Kasia and Zbyszek, and by accident, we met through a mutual friend, and I found myself kind of in a situation, or they found a situation where they said, we need someone now to start today, can you do this? And I said, yeah, it sounds like fun. And I knew absolutely nothing about the Academy and what it did, but what I knew on Monday morning when we organized this first workshop on the Eastern Partnership is that beyond everything else that the Academy does, its true asset are firstly the people who are involved in organizing the programs, and most importantly, it's the students. And in the 4 years that I've been at the Academy, we've had over 200, nearly 300 international students, and I've had the real pleasure and honor to spend a significant amount of time getting to know them, visiting them in other cities as I travel for work, coming back to Warsaw for other programs, coming back to Warsaw to visit their friends that they've made here. And I'm really, really blown away by the students who've come through here. So the opportunity for me to be the one to present our 4 Alumni of the Year, it's a great honor, because at the end of the day, it is our students which make us great, and it's the students that will continue to make us great. So I congratulate all the students from the 10th edition to the 11th edition to the 2014 European Diplomacy Workshop. But most importantly, I'd like to invite to the stage our 4 Alumni of the Year Award winners, starting with Ms. Zhenya Klimczak, Mr. Octavian Milewski, Mr. Duvan Ocampo, and Mr. Leszek Frankowski. If you please join us on the stage. Duvan. We must have missed your name in the applause. We have 4 alumni from Kazakhstan, from Moldova, from Colombia, and from Poland who have done some phenomenal things. And they're only such a small piece of our more than 4,000 alumni. And, but I think they're a very amazing addition. So please, a round of congratulations. Thank you all. Thank you all very much. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And now we proceed into the panel. I would like to kindly invite our panelists, starting with President Mikhail Saakashvili. Mr. President. Ambassador Boris Tarasiuk, please join us to the seat. Ambassador Stefan Grigoryan from Armenia. And last but not least, Dr. Alexander Milinkevich from the Movement for Freedom, the chairman. Gentlemen and dear guests, we have put together this panel in order to explore the challenges and opportunities that stand before the Eastern Partnership Initiative. The Eastern Partnership Initiative that has found itself in a completely new geopolitical context. And this context is, of course, characterized by the growing threat from the Russian aggressive imperialism, the Russian Federation. In order to make this session more interactive, I will go straight to questions that you can then use as a starting point for your brief remarks. And then we will continue with another round of questions, and of course the question from the audience that we hope will contribute actively to this panel. So let me start with our first question concerning the assessment of the current state of relations between the European Union and your countries, Georgia, Ukraine, Armenia, and Belarus. What type, let's start with you, Mr. President, what type of expectations does Georgia have in regards of the European Union today? Have you seen some of those hopes that were so high up there in 2003 and 2004 to have been dashed over the last decade? Or is the European Union still something that the society aspires?
Yes, I mean, first of all, there were no real hopes in 2003, 2004. There was just crazy idea of some very few people saying we should go to Europe. Georgia was a failed state by all accounts, one of the highest corrupt rates in Europe, one of the corruption rates, one of the highest criminal rates, very low GDP per capita. So no state was not functioning. So talking about Europe was beyond fantasy. So, but I have to say that European Union started to react institutionally to what our demands already in 2004, 2005. And after 2008, I think they found a right response to Russian aggression in terms of Eastern Partnership. That was the time when we left CIS, you know, we had no forums even to go to, and suddenly Eastern Partnership was thrown like some salvation thing for us. So institutionally, they've been done things right, and then it was association agreement. So, and then with regards to what alternative people say, well, you know what Russian ideology is. Russian ideology is basically now, right now, very clear. Putin was looking for ideology for a long time because he has no conviction except the fact that he wants to have revanchist power, but he has no ideology per se. Finally, he found one somewhere in 2009, 2010, which is to say to all our peoples, well, I cannot give you anything good, but you know, if you go to Europe, Dutch gay couples will come into a family, grab your children, and they will adopt them. Or they will destroy all your churches, or they will come and, you know, like, there was this film shown recently on Russian television where in Norway they do gay propaganda for children from the age of 6. They hang it on their, and people actually in Russia do believe that, but they're trying to sell it also to people in our country. So I think their propaganda is kind of, okay, we are not that good, but see where they are, like how the horror is awaiting you. I think overall, most of societies are not buying this. And Ukraine clearly proved this case, but also I think Georgian case is that. And so where we are, I think people are clearly in that direction. Russia knows that. So, you know, we are still, Russia's only real leverage left is, there are two things, like internal fifth columns, but second, direct military aggression. So, for instance, you know, there are things when you say, like, South current was South Stream was that, but it doesn't mean Russia will give up idea to cut off the alternative roads to gas. So they might still do for geopolitical reasons, for ideological reasons, for anti-European reasons, all kind of aggressions. People are scared of that, but they see no alternative for themselves. So that's upon the Europeans to really show that they also understand the extent of stake of the threat which people undertook in order to go in that direction.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ambassador, what about Ukraine? The Euromaidan was the first revolution under EU flags that the history of Europe knows. But today, a year after, what are the expectations of Ukrainians? Are the hopes still there?
Short answer, yes. But I will ask your patience and say a few words which are not being related to not my favorable subject as Eastern Partnership. But let me congratulate our good friend and my good friend Mikhail Saakashvili, President Saakashvili, for being a newly born Knight of Freedom. And like many here and outside of this hall, I was impressed with the achievements of the European Academy of Diplomacy for 10 years. So congratulations, Katarzyna and Zbigniew. Now about Eastern Partnership, I would like to praise our friends from Poland and Sweden being the initiators and promoters of this new conceptual approach by the European Union towards its Eastern partners, as a result of which we had something much more clear and more understandable for us, at least in Ukraine, in the form of Eastern Partnership policy of the European Union, instead of vague, very vague European neighborhood policy. Now about aspirations of the Ukrainians. Katarzyna, you were quite right that the Euromaidan was the major essence of Euromaidan was the quest of young Ukrainians to be closer to the European family of nations. Factually, the protest started on 22nd of November, because young people did not agree with the government of Yanukovych and Azarov to suspend the signature of association agreement with the European Union, which should have taken place in Vilnius on 28th of November last year. So this is how the protest started, and I would say that this is a phenomenal pro-European protest which took place in Ukraine. Unfortunately, as a result of this protest, we lost more than 100 lives. Yanukovych regime started to suppress people using arms against unarmed people, but nevertheless, Ukrainians withstood this fighting with the regime, and as a result, regime had to run away from the country. So what are the lessons?
The microphone is not working very well here.
Really? What are the lessons? I think that the new Ukrainian authorities have to take into account and be guided by the quest of those people who were protesting throughout the country. So the way to the European Union should be streamlined. The lessons have to be learned. Unfortunately, after our people gained the victory against the authoritarian regime of Yanukovych, Putin decided to destroy our plans for building new democratic Ukraine. Now, the most active people who were standing for the European way of Ukraine, now they are fighting in Donbass against Russian troops and their proxies from Donbass. I think that this, of course, changed the whole perception of Ukraine's foreign policy objectives, but it will not and it cannot destroy our quest for being in the family of democratic European nations. What Putin did positively, he in fact influenced the change of perception of NATO among Ukrainians. So the number of those supporting Ukraine's membership in NATO tripled since the aggression of Russia. So I think that the new parliament of Ukraine and new government of Ukraine have the unique chance and the opportunity to begin reforms. As Mikhail Saakashvili said recently in his interview, Ukraine has some 6 months to conduct reforms. And I sincerely hope that we will be in a position to do this. We have more than constitutional majority, democratic majority in the parliament. We have a new government. We have the mandate from the people. I think this will be a success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Tarasik. Thank you. And you know we support your fight very strongly here in Poland, but not only, I think, in all Eastern Partnership and Central European countries. Ambassador Grigorian, Armenia. This is a case study for many. You have almost reached the conclusion of an association agreement with the European Union, and the Armenian government has decided to withdraw from the signing of this agreement in 2013, just before the Vilnius summit. What is happening in Armenia today?
Thank you. Your Excellency, Mr. President, distinguished guests, Your Excellencies, ambassadors, dear Mr. Tarasuk and Milinkevich. First of all, I would like to express my gratefulness to Director of the Academy, Dr. Katarzyna Pisarska, for the invitation. It's my honor to speak at the event organized by the European Academy of Diplomacy and Kazimir Bulaski's Foundation, and to be here with the legendary Mikhail Saakashvili. But before I answer your questions, dear Dr. Katarzyna, I would like to start my speech with a remark that the reforms done by Mikhail Saakashvili and his team played a huge role, not only in Georgia, but in the whole South Caucasus. Saakashvili's reform managed to break the stereotype that the policy in Caucasus cannot be transparent or cannot work without corruption. The very fact that the corruption is eliminated in the Georgian police and from method of punishment transferred to work to the method of prevention. I think this says a lot. Today we can bravely say that our nation has a chance or can live in countries where the so important democratic principle as is rule of law can work, as it is in countries of EU. I think this was the very important and main result of Georgian reforms. I can continue the reforms, Georgian reforms who had big influence and in Armenia. For instance, the reforms in tourism area. Today, near 500,000 Armenians in the year to go to vacation in Georgia. I can continue, but what I want to say, these reforms change changed atmosphere in our countries, not only in Georgia. But I am from Armenia, and I would like to say a couple words about Armenia. I'm sure that the future of Armenia must be connected with the EU. We are a part of Europe. We are a part of Europe geographically. You know about Council of Europe Resolution 1997. Even if we are located very far from center of Europe. But today we have a very strange, or I say so, interesting situation. Today the question of membership in Armenia in EU in Armenia is not actual, as is not included in the agenda of the political elites. There are many reasons why so. One of the reasons is connected with our domestic policy. I think the quality of our elites, I say so, is not so high. We have so big problem. Our opposition, majority part of our opposition parties are not so progressive. 2 days ago, our parliament voted to membership Armenia in Eurasia Economic Union, and 3 our parliament opposition fractions voted this law, this agreement. But are another reasons why the Armenia's resolution was so. And this reason is connected with the unresolved issue of Nagorno-Karabakh and the closed border between Armenia and Turkey. 2 borders are closed. In such realities, Armenia connects its security mainly with Russia, as Armenia does not have an alternative. Unfortunately, is so. Moreover, the recent events in the Ukraine showed that the EU is a soft power and cannot protect from the direct military aggression. You remember was direct military aggression, Russia aggression against Georgia in 2008, against Ukraine in this year, and real EU is soft power. Maybe we'll be right, connect with EU only issues who are connected with democracy, with reforms in the judicial system, and so on. And understand that EU is only soft power today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Panie doktorze, Białoruś. Tutaj chyba mamy najtrudniejszy problem, dlatego że Białoruś nigdy nie wykazywała żadnych aspiracji, a przynajmniej oczywiście prezydent Łukaszenko nie wykazywał żadnych europejskich aspiracji i również nie jest tak naprawdę pełnoprawnym członkiem Partnerstwa Wschodniego. Ale czy Białorusini, nie prezydent, czy społeczeństwo białoruskie widzi swoją przyszłość w Unii Europejskiej i czym jest tak naprawdę dla Białorusinów dzisiaj Unia Europejska? Czy ta propaganda rosyjska mówiąca o gejach i właściwie zdemoralizowaniu kompletnym Europy się przebija przez społeczeństwo, czy jednak Białorusini podróżując do Europy widzą po prostu często państwa prawa, porządek i państwa demokratyczne?
Dobry wieczór i chciałbym na początku serdecznie podziękować za zaproszenie na tak ważną i ciekawe spotkanie. A panu prezydentowi Saakaszwilemu chcę pogratulować nagrody tego roku. Zasłużył jak najbardziej i jestem szczęśliwy, że on jest wśród nagrodzonych w te 10 lat. Najczęściej jak występuję na takie tematy o Białorusi, to na początku się tłumaczę, że ja jestem demokratą, a Białoruś to ostatnia dyktatura Europy. No, od pewnego czasu już wiadomo, że nie ostatnia i to żadne nasze szczęście. Wiadomo, że bardziej skomplikowane są rozwoje losów Europy postsowieckiej. Nie takie proste te zmiany. Najczęściej myślano, że po pięknej rewolucji kolorowej, które też próbowaliśmy u nas zrobić, będzie demokracja. Po zmianach prezydenta przyjdzie Europa, a jednak najtrudniejsze to zmiany w mentalitecie postsowieckim. Białoruś była, jak żaden inny kraj sowiecki, ogromnie zrusyfikowana, sowietyzowana. A jednak zawsze szczerze mówię, i to jest prawda, że Białoruś to jest kraj europejski i w swojej historii, i w języku, i w kulturze, ale też w myśleniu dzisiejszym. Przed wydarzeniami na Ukrainie 50% Białorusinów chciało jutro wstąpić do Unii. Wiemy, że to jest nierealne, ani my nie przygotowani jesteśmy, ani Unia, a jednak mimo propagandy antyzachodniej stałej nastrój raczej jest proeuropejski. 10 punktów mniej to byli ci, co chcieliby połączyć przede wszystkim ekonomicznie integrację zrobić z Rosją. I szanse na europejską integrację mimo tej dyktatury białoruskiej są wielkie, bo ja zawsze myślę, że nie tylko kierownicy, no jak u nas Łukaszenko dzisiaj, decydują i nie tyle tacy ludzie, a decyduje myślenie i wola ludzi. Znaczy szansa taka wielka jest i jeżeli mówić o partnerstwie wschodnim, no władza to by chciała, żeby to był taki złoty deszcz, żeby padało dużo pieniędzy, a oni by nic nie zmieniali, tylko korzystali. Opozycja, demokraci, dysydenci, oni raczej patrzą na ten program jako na współpracę i rozwój społeczeństwa obywatelskiego, swobód, praw człowieka, kontaktów z Unią. Ja myślę, że sam fakt, że zaistniał taki program dla nas jest bardzo ważny, bo każdy z nas zna, że Unia przedtem przede wszystkim myślała o rejonie śródziemnomorskim. Wschodni teren jakiś był taki jak całkowita Syberia. Bardzo mało znali oni, bardzo mało rozumieli ten region. Ja nie mówię o nowych członkach Unii. Wiadomo, że tam wiedza ta była szersza. Ja mówię o starej Unii, starej Europie. I dla nas to była taka szansa na to, że nas usłyszą, nas i inne kraje z tej szóstki partnerstwa usłyszą w Brukseli i możemy z pomocą Litwinów, Polaków i tak dalej sformułować nasze potrzeby, nasze problemy, wypracować jakąś strategię wobec Wschodu. I ta szansa no, powoli się staje jawem, to znaczy jest możliwość, że taka polityka będzie, chociaż ja bym chciał, żeby ona była bardziej dynamiczna i bardziej szeroka na pewno. Unia próbowała z Białorusią różne sposoby wpływu. Były sankcje, była izolacja, potem był dialog, potem znów sankcje. O tym może później jeszcze porozmawiamy, ale ja chcę powiedzieć, że ja jestem zwolennikiem twardym dialogu krytycznego, uwarunkowanego, ale dialogu. Żadna izolacja nie pomoże, tylko wepchnie do Rosji, i co teraz jest absolutnie ewidentne. I na przykład, kiedy prezydent Saakaszwili mówił, że nie zamykajcie Białorusi, nie izolujcie Białorusi, mówił o tym w Brukseli, to u nas część taka bardziej radykalna opozycja mówiła, on zdradza demokrację. A to było takie bardzo dalnobaczne, że zawsze ja powołuję na naszą rozmowę, że prezydent Saakaszwili mówił, że jak izolujecie Białoruś, jak ona będzie pochłonięta przez Rosję, to i dla Gruzji jest mniej szans na to, że będzie miała możliwość eurointegracji. Wszyscy jesteśmy powiązani bardzo naszym losem, mimo że sytuacje są różne, problemy są różne i są problemy wspólne, o których będziemy mówić.
Dziękuję serdecznie, panie doktorze. I forgot to add something very important. Dr. Milinkiewicz is a Knight of Freedom from 2005, one of our first Knight of Freedoms, and we're so happy you made it here back to us for this ceremony. Gentlemen, let's move into the second round of questions on managing the growing Russian assertiveness. A simple question. What is the biggest leverage that the Russian Federation has over your countries? What is and how are you dealing with this threat? So where is the weak point that you have that Russia is ruthlessly using on its behalf? And can the EU help? Can it take any types of step, and what type of step these would have to be in order to help your countries manage this leverage that the Russian Federation has over your countries? Please. Okay, I think it's...
Yes. Well, yes. First of all, I would agree with my friend Milinkiewicz that post-Soviet mentality is one of the biggest threats that we have. The post-Soviet mentality has things. You know, people are afraid to take initiative. They are resigned to whatever reality they have. They are cynical about ability to change. And this is an ideology, because Donetsk is not pro-Russian. That's what Europeans are often mistaken about. Donetsk is Soviet. And when people, when they went there, and Putin told them, I am the Soviet Union. These guys want not to be Soviet Union anymore. And that's what attracted initial sympathy of some people there. Now, the other two big allies, which are also part of Soviet psyche, is organized crime and corruption. Look, in 2007, we had huge rallies in Tbilisi against my government, against reforms. Of course, my government also made mistakes, but before that, 3 organized crime bosses came to the region from Moscow, Georgian organized crime bosses, to organize protests in Tbilisi. And that's how Putin works. He brought back, for extradition, the 2 main criminals from Europe, Georgian ones. He keeps them in Moscow, and his services are actively interacting with them. I discussed, when I still was speaking terms with Putin, why need these guys for? He smiled at me, said, Russia is a free country, anybody can come. And so, but I told him they're just notorious killers. I told him, if you are trying to use them for politics, it's useless. These people are, but he's using them for politics, he's keeping them there. And corruption. The thing is that Georgia, when I thought that never give up, because the thing is that when we started, Georgia was the most corrupt, the most criminal. According to the European Union in 2012, we were the safest country in Europe, less crime rate, 4.5 times than Russia. We were the 8th easiest place to do the business in the world, and certainly easiest in Eastern and Central Europe, and basically easiest on the mainland Europe. And so and the reason why, and the corruption is a very big motivator for Russia's intrusion, because the way how they interact, you look, for instance, the way how what they did in Ukraine. In Ukraine, they came in, they have these things like, for instance, 80% of Russia's titanium, which by the way they're also using for weapons, comes from Ukraine. And this is produced by Ukrainian sources. It's jointly owned by the Russians and Ukrainians. It's a listed enterprise, so basically they formally pay money to the state, but in fact they pay very little to the state. They split it. So they use this money to bribe Ukrainian officials. They take this money also to Russian pocket, and they plus take this production to use in Russian weapons against Ukraine. This is like crazy, but that's how it works. You know, how did Russia influence Ukraine for all these decades? There is this guy, Firtash, who has this, who basically had this transit thing on gas. So for several governments and the presidents of Ukraine, he still managed to exert some influence at very high level by saying, okay, we'll have kickback for this gas, we'll split it between us and Russians, we'll spend it on Ukrainian TV stations, on Ukrainian government, or whoever members of Rada, and part will go to Russia, and by the way, it will also give Russia influence over you. And so what happened in Georgia when Ivanishvili came, he was the biggest private shareholder of Gazprom. And actually, he sold part of his assets. Most of it was bought by Valentina Matvienko's family, head of Russian upper house of parliament, very close confidant of Putin. And he actually got 2 billion more than these assets were worth. So he comes to Georgia with cash and says, and then the European Union, of course, immediately says, you should give him his citizenship, you should give him everything, like this is part of democracy. But can you imagine, we're a small country with overall our GDP was like 25 billion. Somebody comes with 22 billion just for elections. And then, you know, and I saw the same thing in Moldova now. In Moldova, there is this guy who came 2 years, exactly Ivanishvili model with Russian money, well, less money than Ivanishvili had, but still for Moldova it was more than enough. He comes, he quickly gains the percentage, and when the Moldova start to talk, stop him, Europeans are saying, no, it's against democracy. Well, it's a much more complex thing, democracy, than this. That we should, certainly, now we have Ivanishvili, and we have certainly the problem that the opposition is being jailed, and there are other issues, etc. We all are aware of that. The reason I'm saying this was a result, what was this oligarchy in Russia? It's a direct result of corruption. How did Putin exert influence all over the place through corruption? Why was it difficult to manipulate Georgia for so long time? Because they were obsessed with Georgia. Because the problem, they had to acknowledge that, every Russian was saying, If Georgia can make it, why we, with all our money, cannot make it? And then Russians invented this myth that Americans are buying them everything. Americans are financing them. Even many Ukrainians today believe this myth, which is absolute bullshit, because I wish Americans had financed us. Americans are not willing to finance anybody. Americans are taking money for Poland for their weapons, and they're very happy with it. And you should be happy that they're generous enough that they gave you weapons for at very high price. So do we have another kind of, America is something bigger for me, it's an idea, but it's not certainly a cash cow. They're very cash strapped. But they invented this theory because they couldn't explain to the Russians why Georgia has money to build all these new cities, infrastructure. If we are tomorrow accepted to the European Union, Poland got all the money for infrastructure for Europe. We will not need money for that. We will have enough roads, enough tunnels, enough everywhere, enough railways, enough many other things. So which means that we mobilize our things from direct foreign investment for all these things that tourism, you mentioned tourism, we had 100,000 tourists when I became president, now we have 6 million. And lots of Armenians, I'm happy with them, lots of Ukrainians, and lots of Poles. So, and I was myself promoting it, running around with Poles and, all the kind of things. So the thing is that when there is no corruption, there is development. When there is no corruption, there is much less influence for the Russians. And so that we should all be aware of that when we talk about the reforms. That's why I said Ukraine has 6 months, and I'll explain very briefly why they have 6 months. Because in 6 months' time, Russia will build a new fifth column. Their whole fifth column was based on this Yanukovych, cronies, and his son, and all these guys. It all collapsed like overnight. And they are confused now. But Putin had planned ready for Crimea because he was preparing it for 2015. We all knew it. Tarasuk was talking about it in 2008. Not many people listened. I was talking about it. It's all in WikiLeaks. Okay, they didn't listen. They had ready plan for Crimea. They didn't have ready plan for failing of fifth column. Now they're building a new one. They will not necessarily, only rely on pro-Russian elements. They might take some formerly very pro-Ukrainian, far-right Ukrainian party like they do in France and start to do something with them, with anybody. They might find some elements in the military. It's all about new money, new military elements, new media, something to stir up trouble. And it, again, will go through corruption. If Ukraine doesn't tackle corruption problem, doesn't do real reforms, these people will go around, and there are lots of Ukrainian judges that will take money. There are lots of Ukrainian prosecutors, policemen. Ukrainian police still calls many of them Americans Amerikosi. They hate them because it's their thing. Of course, Ukrainians don't think that way, but because if you are corrupt, for you, Americans are enemies. For you, Russians are some kind of brothers. And we should destroy that brotherhood somehow.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Tarasuk, Minister Tarasuk, corruption was named as one of the big leverages that Russia has over Georgia. What is the situation in Ukraine? Where is that leverage? What are you fighting with? Apart from the Russian army, of course.
Yeah. Well, fighting corruption was one of the objectives of young people protesting in Euromaidan. Corruption is, one of the darkest parts of Ukraine modern history. And I must say that the new Ukrainian authorities which emerged after the victory of Euromaidan put this as a priority issue, fighting corruption. And however reactionary was the previous composition of Ukrainian parliament, but that Ukrainian parliament, which is now in history, took a number of very important laws concerning fighting corruption, including establishment of the mechanism to fight the corruption. So the current new parliament and the president and the government has a great task to implement those laws, to make them work. And we take the example of Georgia as a success story which we have to implement in Ukraine. I do believe that this current majority coalition in Ukrainian parliament with the president and the government is capable to fight the corruption, well, I cannot imagine that it will not be the case. And now let me come back to your major question about the leverages of Russia and with regard to Ukraine. So to my mind, Russia's strategy was to re-establish the control of the Kremlin over the newly independent states and to establish kind of Soviet Union under their leadership. And only Ukraine, from the very beginning, since 1991, after the disruption of the former Soviet Union, was resisting this Russian attempt to impose domination over the newly independent states. And Russians were trying, you know, to do this, and they understood that the key for the restoration of their domination was Ukraine. So after the aggression of Russia to Georgia, where they have demonstrated for the first time in this century their new aggressive nature, and they were trying indirectly to threaten other new independent states. So after they got their man in Kyiv, Viktor Yanukovych, Putin was of the opinion that he is very close to the realization of this strategy to impose domination through his men in Kyiv, to impose domination over Ukraine, and it will be easier to do it everywhere. And the success and the victory of our people during the Euromaidan destroyed his plans. So he decided that this is the time to implement their strategic plans to impose domination over Ukraine through military means. And that's how aggression started. So this is the major challenge we are facing now. And thanks to our courageous military and volunteers, so we are withstanding Russian aggression, and Ukrainians will demonstrate to the outside world that we are capable to resist and probably to win the third largest military power in the world. Also, I would like to say that we have another challenge from Russia, that is the energy dependence. Energy dependence, you know, this is the never-ending story for Ukraine. And Russians were always, since 1991, were threatening Ukrainian leadership for, you know, closing the oil and gas facets. Well, Ukraine was importing from Russia some 50 billion cubic meters of gas a year. Can you imagine that Ukraine is producing more gas than Poland is consuming? And at the same time, the GDP in Poland is 3 times bigger than in Ukraine. So that means that we can be self-reliant on gas supply if we will bring our economy into order. And I see the future in this. Russian aggression finally led Ukrainian leadership to the understanding that we have to be less dependent on Russian gas supply, and with the help of our neighbors, we are receiving more and more gas from our partners from the European Union. And informational war that Russia was conducting always against Ukrainian people. They were fighting for people's minds through informational channels, through TV. And it worked. And Donbass indicated that it worked partly. So what is our response? Our response is to establish, during the period of war with Russia, the Ministry of Information. The major purpose of this Ministry of Information will be to find, means
and strategy and policy to counter Russian informational aggression against Ukrainian people. So these are just a few examples. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Grigoryan, well, we see that Russia is using all the weaknesses, yes, from structural, societal, Soviet mentality to the military weaknesses, the propaganda tools, means, media. But also, I think, and this is very visible in the case of Armenia, potential conflicts with other neighbors. I'm thinking here of Nagorno-Karabakh and the role that Russia is playing and has been playing for the last 20 years in that conflict, and the need that Armenia has to have some kind of Russian presence on its territory. Would that be one of the main leverages that Russia has over Armenia today?
Russia uses in Armenia or against Armenia different leverages. President Saakashvili said near 1 year ago about Karabakh conflict that Russian interest is to keep this conflict a long time. Why? This is direct leverage to do so that these countries can do independent steps in international relations. But in Russia influence, I want to say that is very big in information area. Today, 3 TV channels of Russia spreads on Armenia freely without problems. Why Russia's position or different issues is spread in Armenia, dominates in Armenia, for instance, connected with Ukraine events. Is the same as position about Ukraine today in Armenia is the same as in Russia. The second big influence has Russia in energetic sector of Armenia. 80% our energetic capacities is today in Russia's hands. Russia role big, presses Russia, our government, and I think the big problem is connected with our elite. Many times our elite don't connect threats and challenges with Russia steps. But what it will be need to do, this is important to me, it will be need to open the Armenian-Turkish border. After this step, situation in the region will change, as was in Georgia when Georgia did reforms with police. Mentality changed our peoples, our citizens. It will be to open the border with Turkey. After that, Armenia will have the alternative.
Thank you very much. Panie doktorze, Białoruś. Dzisiaj ta sytuacja nie wygląda dużo lepiej niż jeszcze kilka lat temu, ale widać, że prezydent Łukaszenko bardzo obawia się tego, co się dzieje na Ukrainie. Widzi możliwość, potencjał właściwie takiego samego scenariusza na Białorusi. Nie jest pewnie przypadkiem, że następuje pewna reforma armii, wewnętrzna reforma armii białoruskiej, że prezydent Łukaszenko zdał sobie w ostatnim czasie sprawę, że ta armia jest właściwie nie jego do końca armią, tylko pod ogromnymi wpływami rosyjskimi. Czy tak naprawdę oprócz tych obaw Łukaszenki, czy społeczeństwo w dużej stopniu jest jednak poddane tej propagandzie rosyjskiej i jest przekonane, że chociażby na Ukrainie to faszyści walczą z dobrymi separatystami, czy też jakaś tam część prawdy jednak przenika przez media?
Na pewno Łukaszenko przegrał Rosji walkę w medyjnej przestrzeni. Niestety na społeczeństwie białoruskie telewizja rosyjska, a jest pełniutka, wszystkie kanały najważniejsze są tam emitowane, zmienili znacznie myślenie Białorusinów o polityce Rosji. Większość na pewno, może 60%, nie wszyscy, ale ci, co oglądają telewizję, a telewizja zawsze zostaje, może i w Polsce też, najgłówniejszym informatorem o takim formowaniu, jakie są nowości. To znaczy, niestety Białorusini odebrali przez propagandę totalną rosyjską, że w Krymie Putin walczył z faszyzmem, a dla Białorusina faszyzm to jest straszne zło, bo każdy trzeci Białorusin zginął w czasie walki z faszyzmem. I na początku jakoś więcej ludzi było na stronie Putina. Łukaszenko tym się przejmował, my też nie wygraliśmy tej walki, bo nam zależy, żeby prawda była w społeczeństwie. Ale później, jak zaczęła się wojna, coraz bardziej Białorusini rozumieli, co to znaczy Rosja i jaka jest walka prawdziwa. To znaczy w dniu dzisiejszym, jak się zmieniły nastroje społeczne. Ja mówiłem, że prawie połowa Białorusinów jutro chciała przed wojną na Ukrainie, chciała jutro do Unii. Dzisiaj ta liczba spadła 2 razy. Ale co ciekawe, prorosyjskie nastroje spadły też 2 razy. To znaczy i teraz jest więcej jednak zwolenników integracji z Unią, ale większość Białorusinów marzy dzisiaj o takiej białoruskiej Szwajcarii, że my tam nie idziemy ani na wschód, ani na zachód. My próbujemy zbudować neutralne państwo. Ja w to nie bardzo wierzę, bo nie jesteśmy w Alpach, nie mamy tyle pieniędzy w bankach i takiej tradycji jak Szwajcaria. Jesteśmy na przełomie cywilizacji po prostu i trzeba wybierać. Ale nie stało się zupełnie źle. Łukaszenko tak samo się przestraszył nawet więcej tej wojny ukraińskiej, niż w swoim czasie się przestraszył tego, co się odbyło w Osetii i Abchazji, w tej wojnie rosyjsko-gruzińskiej. I wtedy rozpoczął się, mimo że byli więźniowie polityczni, rozpoczął się dialog unijno-białoruski. I w dniu dzisiejszym też próbuje zagrać z Unią, tylko ciągle mówi, że nie wtrącajcie się w wewnętrzne sprawy, wszystko u nas w porządku, najdemokratyczniejszy kraj, wybory są najładniejsze, lepsze niż w Polsce i we Francji i próbuje tak zagrać. I moim zdaniem jest bardzo ważne, żeby Unia, mimo tego, że rozpoczyna dialog i potrzebny jest ten dialog, żeby trochę być bliżej Unii, to znaczy dalej od agresywnej Moskwy, jednak nie zdradziła wartościom. Bo zawsze mówimy, że idziemy do Unii, bo tam są wartości, bo tam jest życie moralne, godne i tak dalej. I jak Unia połknie to, że są więźniowie w więzieniach i nie ma swobody prawdziwej mediów, to będzie źle dla tych celów wielkich. Co dotyczy opozycji, no też w pewnym sensie na lepsze wyszło, bo przedtem w białoruskiej opozycji było tak, że jak wybory prezydenckie, to część opozycji myślała, że trzeba pojechać do Moskwy, otrzymać tam prawo na walkę z Łukaszenką, może jeszcze wsparcie wielkie, pieniężne i tak było, i nie myśleli, że można samostojnie, z pomocą ludzi, z pomocą krajów demokratycznych walczyć z Łukaszenką, a jeździli tam. Dzisiaj powiedzieć, że ja pojadę do Moskwy, no to od razu zdrada i to już niemożliwe jest, też cofnięte. Moim zdaniem to taki moment prawdy wielkiej i trzeba, żeby Unia przede wszystkim otworzyła się na Białoruś. Tam problemy wizowe. Białorusini do dnia dzisiejszego płacą więcej niż kto w Europie. 60 euro za jedną wizytę do Polski na parę dni. To znaczy ogromne pieniądze, a inne kraje, Rosja i Ukraina płacą prawie 2 razy mniej. I takich problemów jest bardzo dużo. Trzeba, żeby w głowach Białorusinów było więcej Europy, to znaczy demokracji, prawdy o sąsiednich krajach i wtedy Białoruś ma szansę. Nie przegramy tej szansy, jeżeli będziemy izolowani, to na pewno. I powiem tak, no taka liczba, no ostatnio, że dzisiaj 70% Białorusinów nigdy nie byli w Unii, to znaczy nawet w Polsce i na Litwie. No to zupełnie mało, a 55% Białorusinów nigdy nie pocisnęli rękę komuś z Unii, to nawet nie widzieli takich ludzi. I to przy tym, że Białorusini otrzymują na 1000 ludzi więcej wiz schengenowskich niż ktoś w Europie i w świecie. To znaczy próbują wyjechać, tu trzeba otwierać. Jest dużo pracy, ale nie jest beznadziejnie.
Thank you very much. Dziękuję bardzo. I think what Dr. Milinkiewicz said is very important, that there's not enough of people-to-people contacts. And it is a big issue with Belarus, but it's also a very big issue with Russia. I think what you are saying, 70% of Belarusians, the same, 80% of Russians have never been to the West. So they do not have the imagination necessary to fight the propaganda, because everything you know basically comes from the media. So this is, I think, another important point. Because our time is running out, I would like to ask the audience to join us in questions. I see the first questions, a lady here, gentleman here, and then Mr. Jan Piekło. We'll start with the lady. our student.
Thank you very much. I'm Tina Khuladiani from Georgia. And actually, since Mr. Tarasik was actually stressing what youth people can cause in terms of Ukraine resistance, I can't stay sitting here without making comment what Eastern Partnership means for us, the youth people. I'm coming from the country, from Georgia, where I was born. Actually, there was the Civil War. And when I was studying in a school, going to the European Union, it was pretty much the dream. But then there was the Rose Revolution, then I entered in the university, and while my studies there, I had a possibility to go for exchange in Europe, and nowadays the consequence is that I am the master student of the University of Warsaw, having the European Commission scholarship. And furthermore, the more consequence is that this summer, University of Warsaw didn't discriminate, for example, my citizenship, Georgia, and I was representing, together with my Ukrainian friend, Poland, into the summer school where our 13 other European universities were represented. And when I was delivering there the speech, my message to convey was what I want to stress now here, that I'm standing here in front of you because, not because we are linked, not necessarily by geography, not necessarily because Georgia is the official member of the European Union, but because we are linked by the same values. These values are the independence, are the freedom, and this is democracy. And that's why I wanted to comment on your comments that despite the fact that we can call the European policy the soft European policy, it can't really prevent Georgian people, Ukrainian people, to be directed to the Russian politics. Rather, we stay on the way on European integration. Now, just my really smart questions. To Mr. Tarasuk and to Mr. Grigorian. First of all, to our Armenian neighbors, as far as I know and as far as you noticed, the Armenia has just joined actually the Eurasian Economic Union. And don't you really think that it makes you really apart from the European integration? And how do you think we'll develop the trade relations of Armenia in terms of the European Union? And for Mr. Tarasuk, there is also the issue of losing the big Russian market for the Ukrainian exports because legislation and your standards of the products for the exports, as well as for my own Georgia, is not really standardized with the EU legislation. So how and what steps are Ukraine now is making in order to make closer this legislation in order to substitute the Russian market for Ukrainian exports?
Thank you.
To advance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll come back to these questions. We'll take 2 more questions and then we'll answer to all of them. Please, the following question, the lady, I think there, yes, and then Jan Piekło.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ksenia, and I'm from Belarus. And I have a question to Dr. Alexandra Milinkevich. I think I will ask it in Belarusian language, and then we'll translate it in English. Спадар Мілінкевич, хутка у нас будуть наступні вибори, і мені вельми цікаво почути від вас, ці будете ви одним кандидатом на гэтых выборах. Што вы думаеце, ці зменіць гэта што-небудзь у нашай краіне? Які ваш прагноз? І паўплывае гэта як-небудзь на нашы адносіны з Еўразвязам? So, Dr. Milinkevich, soon we will have president elections in Belarus. So I'm really wondering whether you will be as a single candidate from the opposition in Belarus. What is your forecast for these elections? And how do you think, will it change anything in our country or not? Or will it influence on our relationships with the European Union? Дякую. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There was a gentleman here, and then the last question will be here.
My name is Grigor. I'm from Armenia, and I study at College of Europe here. And my question is to Mr. Saakashvili. As you know, Georgia, as everybody knows here, and the Georgian people paid very high price for joining the European family and for their European aspirations. But my question here is not about Georgia, but about 2 neighboring countries, about Armenia and Azerbaijan. What do you think? What is the price that Armenia should pay? And the second question is about Azerbaijan. As a Knights of Freedom, what is your stance on the Stalinistic regime of Mr. Aliyev in Azerbaijan, when freedom is basically being killed in that country? Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Jan Piekło from Pauci.
Thank you very much. I'm so glad to see my friends in front of me. I'm really grateful for for your evaluation of Eastern Partnership. And I have a question related to Eastern Partnership. Definitely, Eastern Partnership was a success, although the price paid for the success was really very high. Now we have an open conflict with Russia, and some voices in Europe say that maybe it was a mistake. It was this letter of the German intellectuals. They managed to raise the issue that we should treat Russia equally. One of the signatories of this letter was Gerhard Schröder as well. My question is what we can do together. I mean, you, partners from the Eastern Partnership countries, and we, the Europeans, in order to run successfully the Eastern Partnership project and successfully. And what are the biggest challenges in front of us? One of them is definitely disunity of the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, we have 10 minutes, which means each of you has 3 minutes to answer all the questions. I'm more than convinced you are going to be able to make it. President Saakashvili, let's start with you.
Well, yes.
But you need a microphone.
Well, I think, first of all, going to, you know, we paid price or we not paid price and what are the future. I think future is really bright. It will get worse before it gets better. Why it will get worse? Because Russian adventurers will increase. I think they are going to, unfortunately, I predicted, together with some other people, as I said, Boris Parasik, one of them, Crimea, I predicted Donetsk and what would happen there. I hate to be to be proven right, but it was obvious. You should understand the way of thinking of Putin to understand it. And he will go further. His latest declaration showed that. He might go into a string of military conflicts in southeast Ukraine. He would like to cut roads to Crimea. He has to show Russian people that he is paying back for his humiliation, so-called humiliation, well, lots of humiliation, including like the latest in Australia. And there are, of course, useful idiots in the West who would say, oh, you know, we did it. It's our fault. These people just don't get the lesson at all from anything, from the appeasement of previous dictators of all kinds. He will try to fight in Eastern. He will try to do some provocation if he has enough time to maneuver in the Baltics. He certainly is contemplating about considering new military intrusion into South Caucasus, no doubt about it. And he is even playing with something on Kazakhstan, but that's China is a big impediment for him there. But here he really has this string of things about which he's thinking. So there is this thing. But what I think will happen, he will get stuck. He doesn't have enough military force. He really underestimated still the Western reactions. He underestimated oil and other gas or energy factors. And he underestimated also underestimates tolerance of Russian people towards what might they tolerate. Russians have two things. First of all, there was a deal between him and Russian middle class. Okay, he steals, but Russian middle class lives in normal life. Now, these two are not compatible. This 30% that he were stealing above what they had as an income is gone. Now either he steals or he gives back money to the Russians. He cannot not help not stealing, not because it's not the nature of the regime that he has. So he cannot do it. So the fundamental tension. And second, Russians still have this Afghan syndrome. They're fundamentally not capable to tolerate human losses. And basically that's what brave bravery of Ukrainian soldiers is showing. They've done something that is the biggest problem for Putin. More he gets into that fighting, more he will lose, because Ukrainians are fighting for their country, and Putin's soldiers are fighting in a war which they don't want even to recognize they're fighting. And it's a big issue. He's making exactly the same mistakes that the Soviet Union made on energy, on Afghanistan, on other issues. So what I think will happen, that Putin will collapse, and Russia's borders will be changed. Because Russia considered, Russia basically said borders are for grabs. Now, sorry, but also Russia's borders are no longer sacred after what they've done. And that's going to happen within the next 1, 2, 3 years. I don't know. I cannot predict beyond that, but I don't think it will. what we'll be aware of, we should be aware of, a huge risk of him getting into major adventure of playing with the idea of some kind of limited use of nuclear weapons. Because he had been talking about it. So far, he has a record that whatever he had been talking about, he had done it. If he is allowed to, he will do just anything. He's sending the signals beforehand, I might do that. And we should be aware of that and be very careful. And there again, the role of America and maybe Europe is very decisive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ambassador Tarasiuk.
Well, about Eastern Partnership, I would not say that Eastern Partnership is a panacea for all countries of the Eastern Partnership. I'm of the opinion that the major emphasis should be done on a bilateral track of relationship between Ukraine, for example, and the European Union. Eastern Partnership could be a supplement. And you are lucky enough to have the chance to study in the country of the European Union, but many of your compatriots do not have this luxury. And let me bring to your attention a view which may help you better to understand what are the priorities of the European Union. For example, some 2 years ago, I picked the figures, and 6 countries of the Eastern Partnership were receiving less than from the European Union of technical assistance than one Serbia, and 3 times less than one country, non-EU country, Turkey. So this is just for your understanding. What are the priorities of the European Union? Now, about the trade between Ukraine and Russia, our trade was more or less balanced. We had some 30% of trade with Russia and 30% with the European Union. Now the trend is changing. More percentage of trade with European Union and less with Russia. So this is the tendency which I foresee will continue. So we will substitute our trade with Russia with more trade with the European Union. As to the Eastern Partnership, and Jan posed this question, the price. Of course, Russians are trying to intimidate, to threaten the countries of Eastern Partnership, saying that they are going to pay the price for tangling with the European Union. But does that mean that we have to give up? Does that mean that the European Union can dare to give up before Russia? My answer is definitely not. But unfortunately, the reality is such that European Union is ready to give up. And the case of my country, Ukraine, is the clear indication that European Union gave up in the issue of entering into force of association agreement until the end of next year. So I think that this is, this is something which the European Union cannot produce. This is not the policy. This is a retreat. That Putin is trying, to dictate Ukraine and the European Union how to establish and how to conduct the relationship. And what are the major challenges? The major challenge is Russia. So what is the response? The response should be a united Europe, which is unfortunately not the case because European Union is still lacking common foreign and defense policy and common defense and security policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Grigorian.
I want to start this last question, my friend, Mr. Pieklo. First of all, I think it will be right to start realize association agreement. 3 countries signed this agreement. Now develops a ratification process for Moldova, Ukraine, and Georgia with EU. Yes, it will be need to start do something to show our societies this is not empty words. This is concrete process with concrete results. Maybe small results in the start, but with concrete results. This is very important. I want to say, dear Katarzyna, doctor, that when you raised issues connected with people to people, in the framework of Eastern Partnership, our countries, not only Moldova, Georgia, and Ukraine, they are leaders in this issue, and Armenia and Azerbaijan, we signed visa facilitation agreements and readmission agreements. Now works this agreement in the case of Armenia, and yes, contacts, I think, will be strengthening between our peoples, with European peoples. This is a very important part of Eastern Partnership program. And about Eurasian Economic Union. This Armenia after membership, no real Armenian membership, yes, 2 days ago, I said 2 days ago we ratified this agreement. Real Armenia closed the door to cooperate active with EU. But the experience in the framework of post-Soviet territory showed that organization who was established in post-Soviet territory worked very non-effectively, are very formal and so on. For instance, CIS, you know about this organization. And so type future will be, in this case, in Eurasia Economic Union. Why? Where leading Russia, this organization don't work. Today, Russia closed the border for Belarusian foods and goods and so on. Why I think after some time, Armenia come back to association agreement, I am sure. But, and finally, I want to say about Armenia-Azerbaijani relations. I can say you the price. If we don't resolve with Azerbaijan quickly this issue, the price will be our independence. We lost our independence. This is a very serious problem. Russia uses this instrument, this leverage, presses us, and I am sure that it will be need to go to concessions with Azerbaijan to resolve this conflict. This conflict is a serious problem for our independence, our sovereignty.
Excellent. Dr. Milinkiewicz, last words. Are you going to, czy będzie pan kandydował na prezydenta Białorusi?
Może to nie jest najgłówniejszy problem w Polsce, ale na pewno parę słów powiem, że 2 razy w 2001 i 2005 i 2006 roku białoruska pozycja się zjednoczyła, wyłoniła jednego kandydata i było znacznie lepiej, bo w autorytarnym państwie trzeba mieć jedną twarz, jedną strategię i jednego przedstawiciela od opozycyjnej siły. Czy będzie tym razem? No, na razie nie za bardzo wychodzi. No, niestety wina przede wszystkim liderów opozycyjnych, do których też należę, i brak często odpowiedzialności. Walka wewnątrz opozycji jest często mocniejsza niż przeciw dyktaturze. I ja bym bardzo chciał, żeby był jedyny kandydat. To nie jest lek na całą strategię, ale ludzie widzą, że opozycja się zjednoczyła, znaczy jest mocna, odpowiedzialna i można jej uwierzyć. 2 słowa powiem o Rosji. Tam było takie słowo bardzo niebezpieczne w pytaniu, że w Niemczech coraz częściej, może i we Francji też, są takie głosy, że a może trzeba rozmawiać z Rosją jak równy z równym. Ja szczerze powiem, że Unia zawsze mówiła, nawet z awansem, jak równy z równym, ale żeby ocenić sytuację Rosji, trzeba zrozumieć, że Putin jest takim człowiekiem, który nie rozumie, co to jest dyplomacja, nie rozumie, co to jest kompromis. On ocenia i dyplomację, i kompromis jako słabość. Uważa, że tylko siła, a na razie Unia nie demonstruje tej siły. Ja nie mówię, że musi wprowadzić wojska i na pewno nie wprowadzi na Ukrainę wojska, ale twarda, konsekwentna, wspólna pozycja, tylko to może wyleczyć Rosję. Żeby zrozumieć, co tam się dzieje, trzeba oglądać telewizję. Ja jej nie lubię, ale ja ciągle oglądam, bo że zajmuję się polityką. To jest szowinistyczne, powiem ostrzej. To jest faszystowska propaganda na 24 godziny i wmawiają ludzie to, co im się podoba. bo najgłówniejszym hasłem tej polityki wewnętrznej, przez telewizję wmawianej, jest to, że jesteśmy największym w świecie podzielonym narodem i musimy się zjednoczyć. Zjednoczyć kosztem ziem bałtyckich, białoruskich, armiańskich, gruzińskich i tak dalej. I ta polityka będzie kontynuowana. Dlaczego? Jak Putin teraz, jak wypuścił tego diabła z butelki i jak teraz zatrzyma tą politykę, będzie zniszczony od razu. Od niego potrzebują większych sukcesów. On musi to kontynuować. I tylko taka polityka sankcji, które teraz są, ja nie wiem, miękkie, twarde sankcje, takie jak są, oni prowadzą do tego, że coraz częściej w Rosji są pytania, czy warto było. Ale to długi czas, to nieproste. Tak od razu się nie wyleczy Rosja. Rosja jest chora na imperializm. Ja powiem tak, że w Rosji nie tylko elita jest imperialna, w Rosji ostatni pijak na ulicy jest imperialistą. No nie wszyscy, na pewno, my to znamy, ale tak dużo ich jest, bo oni czują siebie pokrzywdzonymi i chcą podziału nowego świata. Nie zatrzymamy, będzie źle i dla Zachodu. Zachód nie utrzyma się. To wszystko było w 30 latach. No po prostu powtarza się w koło historia, no ma taką cechę.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank the panels. To sum up, I just think that we can all agree that the soft power is not even soft, it's a power of values. And as long as the European Union is based on those common values that resonate around democracy, freedom, rule of law, and human rights, it will, as President Saakashvili has stressed throughout the last 3 hours of our ceremony, it will prevail because values do always prevail. So that soft power may be harder than we sometimes think. Let's give a great round of applause to our panelists. Thank you, gentlemen. Wait, do you have to wait? Sorry. And I would also like to take the opportunity and invite our all team members. So it's very rarely that we have an occasion to thank the team members. And on the 10th anniversary, I would really like to ask here the entire team of the European Academy of Diplomacy and the Pulaski Foundation to join us for a photo. Guys, come on in on the stage with our honored guests. But you keep on sitting and they'll just, yeah. Thank you for your... Sit. Please do sit. Absolutely. And in the meantime, as we are preparing for the photo, I just want to inform all of our students that we are planning an after party tonight. It's at 9:30. At 9:30 in a place called Capitol. I have never been there, but I'm sure some of you have been. Marszałkowska 15. So we start our after party at 9:30. We hope to see you there. I don't know if President Saakashvili will join us. Of course. Okay, but if he's very tired, then he doesn't. But if he's not, then he comes.
I will.
Okay, so the party is with Mikhail Saakashvili.
Help me and go on with party? No.
Okay, so absolutely. So join me and Misha at the party in Capitol at 9:30.